defending his unified WBC and WBO super lightweight, aka light welterweight, 140-pound titles. Terence Crawford looked very impressive against John Molina Jr. Just pretty much dominant display. Was winning very clearly all 8 rounds up until he managed to get the TKO over John Molina. Molina, for his worth though, definitely never stopped coming. He kept going right at Crawford with everything he had. Was trying to launch those big right hands and the big left hooks as well. Those shots that have bailed him out in the past where he was down heavy on the cards. But overall, it was largely the fight that I expected at least, and that I think most people expected. It was really just Crawford putting on a dominant display of just overall technical brilliance, boxing ability. Quick note, of course, John Molina didn't make weight for this fight. He was 143 and a half pounds. In the end, of course, they came to an agreement. He paid Crawford some money, and the fight went on. So really, a lot of people have been talking about Terence Crawford fighting at welterweight in the future, and I think this was a good thing to see what we're expecting of Terence Crawford at welterweight, because he was basically fighting a welterweight in John Molina Jr. And I know a lot of people are gonna say like, oh well, John Molina isn't really a welterweight. He's fought a lightweight in the past, this, that, and whatever. Well, John Molina is about as big of a lightweight and light welterweight as you would ever imagine could potentially even make those weight classes. Matter of fact, he looked pretty damn drained on the scale, missing 140 altogether, and went at a 143 and a half. I'm sure in the near future, he's probably going to be fighting at welterweight from here on out. So, and he's a guy with a big punch who managed to land at least a couple of grazing shots on Terence Crawford. Crawford took him, pretty nicely. He took him in stride. If he was ever momentarily stunned, he really didn't show it. He kept the poker face up, and he went on about his business and just taking apart John Molina piece by piece, round by round. Did a good job. Did a good job of doing so. He just he wasn't overly bothered by all the pressure that Molina was putting on him. Molina isn't the smartest of pressure fighters. He's pretty basic. He isn't really the most skilled guy. He's really just a punch. He's a puncher. He's a bona fide puncher. Period. Point blank. That's it. That's it, and that's all. So of course, while he'll have a reasonable amount of success over the likes of Provodnikov or Matisse or guys that choose to be overly relaxed on the defense, such as Mickey Bay and Hank Lendy. When it comes to the very top echelon type of boxers, he's very vulnerable. He doesn't really have a lot of tricks up his sleeve in order to really catch up to you, cut off the ring, and really put that power to ultimate use of actually landing it cleanly and fleshly. That was the case when he fought Humberto Soto. That was the case when he fought Adrian Broner. I'm not even going to mention the DeMarco fight because that didn't even really go long enough for for that to be any kind of factor. But otherwise, he's a guy that has been shown to be outboxed in the past, and Crawford came through in flying colors with doing just that. And matter of fact, he actually did it much more impressively than the aforementioned Broner and Soto did. The Soto fight was actually really a terrible fight, just because both of them were fouling the shit out of each other. Man, I think Molina landed about 6 or 7 low blows on Soto. Soto was retaliated by hitting Molina on the back of the head, and yeah, it was a pretty nasty fight to watch. The Broner fight, of course, was really just Broner kind of sticking and moving, really not showing very much of his offensive ability at all. Just kind of playing it safe very much, and just winning a clear, clean-cut decision. But Crawford, on the other hand, was was on his way to winning that decision. Of course, he managed to get the stoppage, but doing so in a very offensively impressive manner as well. He wasn't using a lot of wasted movement, wasn't just completely being defensive and negative in order to keep Molina from doing what he was doing. He wasn't, doing a lot of moving and a lot of extraneous movement without hitting and landing punches, and wasn't doing a lot of extraneous movement as well as clinching. Crawford did a good job. That was just a good boxer puncher display from Terence Crawford. Very impressive, definitely. Of course, after the fight, Max Kellerman asked him who he was interested in the near future. Crawford did the damn thing. He called out the new IBF champion in Dongo, who, of course, just knocked out Edward Troyanovsky in one round. A vicious, brutal knockout. Also called out Ricky Burns, said he was down for a rematch if he wanted it, because he wants to clean up the title position in 140 pounds. He wants all those belts, and that's something that I think all champions should be looking to do. And so if Terence Crawford is looking to do it, I think that's very good. Of course, he did say that that was his second choice. Any of the champions outside of a Manny Pacquiao fight, of course, people have been talking about that. He said he's very much been open to it, and he's still open to it. And so that's a fight I wouldn't mind seeing either. That's definitely a top fight. Top welterweight versus a top light welterweight, and a top light welterweight in a guy in Terence Crawford that I think most people, myself included, to in a certain manner anyway, depending on the opponent, would favor over most of the guys at welterweight. I mean, of course, Kellerman also mentioned Errol Spence Jr. He was saying that that would be a fantastic kind of fight between two kind of in their prime, young, undefeated, hungry fighters. Um, and I don't disagree with them. Albeit, Spence still has yet to get his title opportunity at 147 pounds. I'd definitely like to see that take place before anything else. To get his true worth and value in terms of name value, like up there, just before he was to fight in the type of a fight that would be between him and Spence. Between him and Crawford, in what would be just two young, undefeated, primed prime world champions basically. But Terence Crawford, uh, otherwise, I think he's very much a 50-50 level of opponent against the likes of Keith Thurman, against the likes of Danny Garcia. Of course, they have their interesting, intriguing unification fight coming up very soon. I think him versus Sean Porter would be a fantastic fight, but another evenly matched fight. If he was to fight Jesse Vargas, I think he would largely be favored over him as well. So we have a guy in Terence Crawford who hasn't even necessarily fought at the welterweight division yet, but is likely to be favored over most of the top guys in the welterweight division. All but maybe the top 2, 3 guys in the weight class, pretty much. Very impressive win for Terence Crawford. Just another in a string that he's been putting on. Of impressive displays. Of course, Molina was a little bit of maybe a backstep or a sidestep from the Victor Postol win. But at the same time, 140 pounds isn't necessarily the deepest of divisions in terms of just top in their prime, known high level commodities, really. I mean, largely a lot of the top talent at 140 pounds over the past few years has gone up to 147, and a lot of the top talent at 135 has yet to move up to 140. Really, the only other major name that I could think of, really, that's at 140 pounds that would be, I think, a pretty enticing matchup for Terence Crawford would be somebody like Francis Barthélemy. Um, but outside of that, I mean, it's pretty much guys who Crawford is going to be clearly favored over by and large. So that's pretty much all I have to say about the Terence Crawford versus John Molina fight. Oh, well, you know what? Actually, I might just make mention the way that John Molina fought against Terence Crawford is the way that people wanted to see somebody like Nicholas Walters fight against Vasily Lomachenko, where even if he was outclassed in terms of technique and ability, he at least gave it his all, tried something different, and tried like hell to just get the victory by any means necessary. John Molina never stopped trying. He never stopped. He never stopped believing in his power. He never stopped believing in himself in order to be able to land that power and get the job done, score the brutal, brilliant, come from behind knockout. But it just wasn't meant to be for him. But he never stopped trying, and you got to give him props at the very least for that. He's always going to be an entertaining fighter to watch in the future, especially as more of like a gatekeeper level guy. A guy that could beat all but the very best fighters, really, and a guy that you definitely have to be on your P's and Q's against. Although it might be very tough for him to get some title shots and big name fights in the near future, just because of the fact that he is a very, very high risk opponent with regards to the power that he packs. But who knows? Maybe we'll see him fight against Andre Berto. I think it'd be a good, interesting fight. Him versus Robert Guerrero would be a very interesting fight. I think. The two guys who probably saw their best days, at lower weight classes, especially Guerrero, because Guerrero's really not a very a big guy the way that Molina is. Molina was the type of guy that was really bursting at the seams at 135 and 140. Robert Guerrero was a guy that probably could still and probably would still be optimal at 135, really. So I wouldn't mind maybe a fight like that either. I already mentioned the potential fights out there for Crawford. He's definitely one of the rising stars, one of the top pound for pound talents in the sport. And so sky's the limit for him as far as his near future is concerned. He definitely still has a lot of accomplishments to potentially achieve out there. I think his best days may still be ahead of him, really. So that's all I got to say about the Crawford versus Molina fight, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.